Fifth Avenue, Manhattan, New York City. The most expensive real estate on earth. Billionaires, luxury penthouses, Tiffany & Co., the Plaza Hotel. This is where the richest humans in America live. And above them, a predator, a red-tailed hawk. Wild, fierce, untamed. His name? Pale Male. He doesn't care about money, doesn't care about status. He hunts pigeons over Central Park, builds his nest on limestone ledges overlooking Fifth Avenue. And when the building owners tried to evict him, New York City fought back. This is the true story of a wild hawk who became a symbol, of nature refusing to surrender to concrete and steel, of lonely New Yorkers finding connection in the sky, of a legal battle that made international headlines. Pale Male lived on Fifth Avenue for 32 years. He raised over 20 chicks in the heart of Manhattan. He survived winters that killed other hawks, survived hawks that challenged his territory, survived humans who wanted him gone. And he taught an entire city something they'd forgotten, that wildness can exist anywhere, even here, even now. This is the story of the most famous bird in New York City, the hawk who made Fifth Avenue his kingdom and refused to leave. A young red-tailed hawk appeared in Central Park. He wasn't banded, wasn't tagged, no one knew where he came from. But wildlife experts noticed something unusual. He was paler than most red-tails. His chest feathers, normally dark brown, were cream-colored, almost white, so people started calling him Pale Male. Red-tailed hawks are common across North America. They nest in forests, mountains, rural areas. But Manhattan? Never. The noise, the pollution, the glass buildings, the millions of people. No hawk had ever successfully nested in the city before. But Pale Male didn't know that, or didn't care. He began hunting in Central Park. Pigeons mostly, occasionally rats, sometimes squirrels. The park had plenty of prey, and from his perch high in the trees, he surveyed his new kingdom. Then he did something extraordinary. Instead of nesting in the park, the logical choice, he flew east to Fifth Avenue, to one of the most expensive addresses in Manhattan, 927 Fifth Avenue, a 12-story cooperative apartment building. Built in 1926, limestone facade, elegant, historic, home to some of New York's wealthiest residents, and Pale Male chose it. Specifically, the 12th floor, a decorative stone cornice above a window, perfect height, sheltered from wind, overlooking Central Park. It was, from a hawk's perspective, prime real estate. In 1992, Pale Male found a mate. She was called First Love by the birdwatchers who'd started following his story. Together, they built a nest. Sticks, twigs, bits of wire, plastic bags, whatever they could find, wedged into the stone cornice of 927 Fifth Avenue. And they laid eggs. This had never been documented before. A wild hawk nesting on a building in Manhattan. Wildlife biologists were stunned. Birdwatchers were ecstatic. The building residents, less so. The first nest failed. The eggs didn't hatch, or the chicks didn't survive. Records aren't entirely clear. But Pale Male didn't give up. The next year, 1993, he and First Love tried again. This time, success. 2 chicks hatched. High above Fifth Avenue, baby hawks were being raised. New Yorkers walking past on the street had no idea. But the small community of birdwatchers who'd been tracking Pale Male, they were witnessing history. A wild predator had claimed Manhattan, and he wasn't leaving. 927 Fifth Avenue sits directly across from Central Park. Imagine the view. To the west, 843 acres of green, trees, ponds, meadows. To the east, Fifth Avenue, Museum Mile, the Metropolitan Museum of Art. It's one of the most iconic views in the world, and Pale Male owned it. From his nest on the 12th floor cornice, he could see everything. Joggers in the park, yellow taxis on Fifth Avenue, tourists, locals, the rhythm of the city. But he wasn't interested in humans, he was interested in prey. Red-tailed hawks are ambush predators. They perch high, wait, watch, then dive, reaching speeds of 120 miles per hour, and strike. Pale Male's hunting territory was Central Park. Every morning he'd leave the nest, soar over the ramble, the great lawn, the reservoir, looking for pigeons, squirrels, rats. He was phenomenally successful. Birdwatchers documented him catching prey almost daily, and he'd bring it back to the nest, to his mate, to his chicks. A wild food delivery service on Fifth Avenue. Over the years, Pale Male had multiple mates. First Love disappeared in the mid-1990s, cause unknown. Then came Chocolate, then Blue, then Lola, his longest and most famous mate. Lola arrived around 2001. She was larger than Pale Male, more aggressive, a formidable hunter. Together, they became a power couple, the king and queen of Fifth Avenue. Each spring, they'd rebuild the nest. Hawks don't maintain nests year-round, they reconstruct them annually. Pale Male and Lola would spend weeks gathering materials, sticks from Central Park, branches, sometimes absurdly large pieces, 3 feet long, that they'd somehow wedge into the cornice. The nest grew, year after year, layer after layer. By 2004, it was massive, several feet deep, packed tight, a testament of over a decade of construction. But the nest created problems, for the residents of 927 Fifth Avenue, that is. Hawks are messy. Prey remnants, bones, feathers, guts would fall from the nest. Blood would stain the limestone. Hawk droppings covered the sidewalk. And the noise. Baby hawks are loud. They screech constantly, especially when hungry, which is always. Residents on the 12th floor complained about sleep disruption, about the mess, about a wild animal nesting on their building. They'd paid millions for these apartments, and now there was a hawk outside their window. But here's the thing. For every resident who hated the hawks, there were thousands of New Yorkers who loved them. They gathered every day, on the sidewalk across from 927 Fifth Avenue, on benches facing the building, in Central Park near the model boat pond where you could see the nest, binoculars, spotting scopes, notebooks, the Pale Male regulars. These weren't professional ornithologists, they were New Yorkers, retirees, dog walkers, office workers on lunch breaks, people who'd stumbled upon the hawks and become obsessed. Because watching Pale Male wasn't just bird watching, it was witnessing wildness in the most unlikely place. Lincoln Karim was one of the first, a bench sitter and urban wildlife photographer. He'd spend 12 hours a day photographing Pale Male, documenting every hunt, every nest repair, every chick. He became the unofficial chronicler of Pale Male's life. His photos spread across the internet, into newspapers, onto TV. Pale Male had a publicist, and he didn't even know it. Marie Wynne wrote a book, Red Tails in Love, in 1998. It became a bestseller. The story of Pale Male and the community that formed around him. She described the birdwatchers as a family, strangers who became friends because they all cared about the same hawk. And they did care, deeply. Some came every day, rain or shine, winter or summer. They knew Pale Male's routine, when he'd hunt, where he'd perch, how he'd interact with Lola. They named the chicks each year. They mourned when chicks didn't survive. They celebrated when they fledged successfully. For many of these people, Pale Male wasn't just entertainment, he was connection. New York City can be lonely, millions of people, but isolation everywhere. The birdwatchers found community. They'd stand together on the sidewalk, share scopes, point out behaviors, talk about hawks, about life. Pale Male gave them something to care about, something beyond the concrete and steel, a reminder that nature still existed, even here. And Pale Male, he didn't care. He went about his life, hunting, nesting, raising chicks, unbothered by the humans watching him. He was a wild hawk, doing what hawks do. On Fifth Avenue. December 2004. Without warning, Without notice, the board of 927 Fifth Avenue made a decision. The nest had to go. On December 7, 2004, workers arrived. Scaffolding was erected, and they removed Pale Male and Lola's nest. Every stick, every twig, ripped out, thrown away. Then, they installed metal spikes, anti-pigeon spikes, to prevent the hawks from rebuilding. The bird watchers arrived that morning to find nothing. The nest, built over 13 years, was gone. Pale Male and Lola circled overhead, confused, calling, looking for their home. The outrage was immediate. The building claimed they'd acted legally. They said the nest was a health hazard, a nuisance. The Migratory Bird Treaty Act protects hawks, but the building argued the nest was empty. No eggs, no chicks, winter. Technically, they weren't harming the birds, just evicting them. But New Yorkers didn't care about technicalities. They cared about Pale Male. Lincoln Karim was there when the nest was destroyed. He photographed the workers, the empty cornice, the distraught hawks. His photos went viral. News outlets picked up the story. The New York Times, CNN, BBC. Manhattan's famous hawk evicted from Fifth Avenue. The backlash was fierce. Emails flooded the building's management office, angry, passionate, demanding the nest be restored. Protests were organized. Within days, hundreds of people gathered outside 927 Fifth Avenue. December 2004, Fifth Avenue, Manhattan. Hundreds of protesters. Signs, "Save Pale Male," "Birds have rights too," "Shame on 927 Fifth Avenue." They chanted. They demanded the nest be rebuilt. They refused to leave. This wasn't just bird watchers. This was New York City. Celebrities showed up. Mary Tyler Moore, who lived in the building, publicly supported restoring the nest. Paula Zahn, journalist, resident, spoke out. Even Donald Trump weighed in. They should put the nest back. The building board was blindsided. They had expected some complaints, not a media firestorm, not protests, not international condemnation. The board members' names were published. They received hate mail, death threats, all because of a hawk. The legal fight intensified. Audubon Society, Wildlife Conservation Society, NYC Parks, everyone weighed in. The building insisted they'd done nothing illegal, but the court of public opinion disagreed. Pale Male and Lola, meanwhile, tried to rebuild. They brought sticks to the cornice, but the metal spikes prevented them from securing anything. The sticks just fell. Over and over, they tried and failed. It was heartbreaking to watch. The protests continued. Every day, every night. In the freezing December cold, people stood vigil. For a hawk, for wildness, for the principle that nature deserved space, even on Fifth Avenue. December 2004. After 2 weeks of relentless pressure, the building board caved. They announced the nest would be restored. A platform would be installed. Pale Male could return. The victory was sweet, but not without conditions. The building installed a metal cradle beneath the cornice so debris wouldn't fall on residents, and they created a new ledge, sturdier, more stable for the nest. It was a compromise, but it was enough. Pale Male and Lola immediately began rebuilding. Within days, they had a new nest, not exactly where the old one had been, but close enough. Home. Spring 2005. The nest was back. Pale Male and Lola laid eggs. New York City held its breath. Would they hatch? After all the trauma, the eviction, the fight, would they succeed? Yes, 2 chicks hatched. Pale Male was a father again, and New York City celebrated. Over the next 18 years, Pale Male continued, raising chicks, hunting, surviving. Lola died in 2021, cause unknown. Pale Male found a new mate, then another. His life continued, high above Fifth Avenue.
He became a legend. Documentaries were made, books written. School groups would visit to see him. Tour guides pointed him out. That's pale male, the most famous hawk in America. Wildlife biologists studied him. His success inspired research into urban raptors. Other hawks began nesting in Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens. Pale male had shown it was possible. But age caught up. By 2023, pale male was at least 32 years old, ancient for a wild hawk. Most redtails live 10 to 15 years in the wild. Pale male had more than doubled that. November 25, 2023. Pale male was found dead in Central Park, near the model boat pond, the place where thousands had watched him over decades. The news spread quickly. Birdwatchers mourned. New Yorkers mourned. A generation had grown up with pale male, and now he was gone. The autopsy revealed old age, no trauma, no poison, just time. He'd lived a full, wild life on his terms. His legacy? Permanent. Pale male proved that wildlife and cities can coexist, that nature doesn't need vast wilderness. Sometimes a limestone cornice on Fifth Avenue is enough. He taught New Yorkers to look up, to notice the wild things sharing their city, to care. And he taught us about resistance, about refusing to be displaced, about fighting for your home, even when the odds are impossible. Pale male was a hawk, but he was also a symbol of wildness, of persistence, of home. New York City was his kingdom, and he ruled it well. Rest in flight, pale male, King of New York. 1991, 2023.